So here we are, week 18, guys. 18 out of 24. And at some point, we need to talk about when our last class will be, just because it's set for the 21st of December, and that's like the week of the Christmas holiday. So, and a lot of times people are traveling around that time, and so we want to pick a date. If not that date, another date that will work for the majority of everyone. So just be thinking about that. We don't have to decide right now, but that time is coming already where we're going to have to decide on our final class date if it's not going to be the 21st of December. All right. Well, let's check in. So I gave you guys kind of an extra assignment or it was not an assignment, but something if you could share any like tools or resources that you plan to use for managing clients and data. I know that's something we kind of briefly talked about. So if you have some thoughts, feel free to drop them in the chat. I know I mentioned Gmail. I really like for managing emails and creating folders for clients and stuff like that. So that was something we had talked about. So if you guys have thoughts, feel free to drop them in the chat or even throughout the week if you have thought of anything. Thought it'd be helpful to share. I have some other ones I'll share with you guys too that I have really have been liking lately. All right, so on to our check-in. So week 18, last week we did perspectives. So I wanted to check in with you guys. Just what did you notice about perspectives this past week? Who wants to go first? What about you, JC? What did you notice about perspectives this week?
I'm just looking back at my notes. I feel like my perspectives are pretty skewed this past week. My director officially asked me to reconsider leaving and to redesign my current position. And so we looked at that, and I tried to look at it with a really positive perspective and think about, it could be a new opportunity, but I think I am going to stick with my gut decision here and bow out as gracefully as I can at this point. So I would say I bounce back and forth between kind of trying to keep a positive perspective and really taking a look at all the opportunities I had. And then also just kind of really thinking about what I guess my own personal perspective, what it's going to be like for me every day. So it was good, kind of a whirlwind week.
Wow, so it sounds like perspectives definitely came into play though.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like my brain is muddled right now, but I'm trying to think back, and they really did help.
Oh, that's good. How do you feel now that you are settled in your decision?
Well, I still have to let my director know tomorrow. We had a final meeting about it today, about trying to redesign the position. And it's time.
Mm-hmm. How are you doing with making your peace with that?
Well, I went back and did the limiting beliefs exercise, and like all of my beliefs that I wrote out, they're not really like beliefs about myself and my abilities, but they're more about what I was feeling like I was getting externally. So I went back and revisited my assumptions square and took a look at that and just kind of kept going backwards with it. And I mean, it'll be fine. I think I haven't put out a lot verbally to some of my closer friends and family, and I'm usually quite verbal, so everyone's thrown for a loop and not really. No one's saying it's a terrible idea, but no one's also saying, hey, great idea. Quit your full-time job that you've been working for years.
But JC, you were saying that a lot of people were giving their input, so maybe less input is good.
that's kind of what I was going for. I figured, be a little vague, be a little cryptic, and then everyone got offended, but that's fine. I'll land on my feet.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, JC, and thanks for bringing up the limiting beliefs exercise. Did anyone else do that too? That was something we talked about 2 weeks ago, was having you guys go through that yourselves. All right. Robin, do you want to check in? You look all cozy with your mug.
I can check in. Perspectives. I am also reading a different book, and I can't remember it right now. It's in the car. But and it also dealt with perspectives and setting yourself up for a more positive encounter with someone who you might not have. So it's about changing your perspective of that person, or maybe having more of an open mind about it. And it did seem to work. And when you have more of an open mind, I know all the examples or exercises kind of pointed to this, but I actually saw it in process. Having more of an open mind, having more a more positive perspective about someone or something actually led to a much more positive interaction with that person. So I think put us on a different playing field, put us on a different place. So it was good.
Awesome. And did you discover anything from the limiting beliefs exercise?
No, I didn't. No, I worked primarily using, it was my assumptions, or the assumptions of, not so much, well, limiting beliefs. I didn't actually go through that exercise with it. It wasn't a physical, I went through that exercise with it. No, I didn't. But it would also fit in this, if I had thought about it in this particular instance. Yes.
Well, and the whole point of why I wanted you guys to go through it was just, hey, there's this tool that most of the time assumptions is even more helpful and more powerful, because most of the time it is assumptions, but limiting beliefs are real too. And so there are definitely times when it could definitely be useful. All right. Thanks for checking in, Rob. I liked what you said about now you're on the same playing field, like you're almost like your perspective elevated, like that possibilities for that relationship.
Absolutely.
So cool. Thanks for sharing, Robin. All right. And is that Kellen and Kanika? Are you guys on phones right now?
Yeah, hi.
How are you, Kellen?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
We're good. Yeah, we're just checking in about just anything you noticed on perspectives, and also checking in if you did the limiting beliefs exercise or anything else you want to add.
So I guess I would say I was thinking about the nature of perspectives. My conception of that is one that is sort of a little more, I don't know, a little more extended. Like, I think of perspectives as a perspective is something that you cultivate over time. I just don't really think of it as something that can shift like so quickly, like, in a day or something. But I enjoy thinking about the nature of it. I enjoy thinking about whether or not, I mean, my idea of a perspective is, over a period of time, what you have going on in your life, there are different elements that would kind of come together to create a perspective, and that might happen over a course of years, and then, it's the people it's the situation that you're involved in, and all of this kind of long term comes together to give you a certain perspective at a certain point in your life. And so the idea for me of being able to just shift it in an afternoon, I just don't think of it that way, but I enjoy thinking of the possibility of it and whether or not that's actually feasible. As far as the limiting beliefs, I haven't really been focusing on that right now, but I think all this is a lot of good, it's good building blocks for exploration. So that's where I'm at.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Kellen. And I agree with you. Perspectives really are, our life experience and beliefs and, other people in our lives. Like all of it interacts and creates that perspective. So you're definitely spot on. And just even talking about something can be a really big growth experience sometimes. Sometimes if you don't get to actually, creating new perspectives, this exploring it can be really, eye-opening. Oh, thanks for sharing, Kellen. Just so much just exploring. Thanks, Kellen. Mike, what about you?
Thanks.
So as far as perspectives, I went back to my hometown this weekend and stayed there until today, and stayed with a friend of mine, with my wife and with his family, who I grew up with on the same street. He lives in the same house that he grew up in. And so we spent time with his kids, who are my godkids, and with his grandkids. And it just really brought me back nicely to my perspective around what is important, in my life, and that being long-term relationships and family and connections that are meaningful and things like that. So I drift away from those things really easily, particularly when I'm in the crux of a lot of work, like I have been over the last couple of months. So it was a nice kind of first local reminder of where my perspectives really are grounded. And then on the limiting beliefs, I didn't go through that exercise per se, but I reread it today before class. And so I think it's a really nice framework, a really nice kind of a tactic that's easy for people to go through, and will probably be pretty powerful in terms of uncovering some underlying thoughts and behaviors that they perhaps hadn't recognized up to that point. So I'm going to try to use it this weekend in a couple of practice coaching sessions.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing, Mike. So I'm really curious because, I guess for me as a coach, as I was listening to you talk about going back to your hometown, it sounded like you might be talking about some of the values. I don't know, if there's some things that are really important to you.
Oh yeah, it's both for sure. Yeah, I think of perspectives kind of in the context of not only what we covered before class last week, which I wasn't here for, but also in the context of that 2x2 square exercise that we went through, with beliefs and perspectives and evidence and so forth. And so I've been carrying that around in the back of my mind ever since that class. But it's definitely, I think they overlap. I don't think you can have, I think it'd be difficult to have perspectives that are really meaningful to you without values attached to them. Does that make sense?
Right, because, especially beliefs and values could lead into a perspective, right? They're part in creating it.
Yeah, exactly.
I know all these weeks in a row of assumptions, limiting beliefs, and perspectives, now values. There's so much depth here, and I feel like they all can be connected, for sure.
Yeah, I think they are connected. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Mike. I'm glad to have you back. Oh, I do want to say, Sarah says hi. Unfortunately, she was unable to come to class, but she wanted to make sure for me to tell you guys that she says hi and she will miss everyone. So I know we'll miss her too in our Wednesday garden here, but just wanted to let you guys know that. All right, Eddie, what about you? Any thing you noticed on perspectives, limiting beliefs this week?
Okay. About the perspective, I think is I get the point, but I think to shift the emotion quickly is not too easy. But that makes sense?
The shift is not easy.
Yeah, to shift the emotion is not easy, you know. When you get somebody and they started talking about some perspective, or I have myself as some perspective, to shift this is not too fast. It's possible. It's possible, but it's not too fast.
It takes work, right?
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of intentionality and just really being like a lot of conscious effort. And certain perspectives, I think, are harder to shift than others, for sure.
Yeah, and about the limited beliefs, this is a great exercise because for my eyes, limited belief is everybody live inside the box, you know, that the box that's mean the frame, that's what you believe you are, or what you believe it is your life, you know. And we put us in inside this box, you know, and to open this box and take the client to move for what they think they are, for what they need to go. I don't know if it makes sense. Does it make sense?
That makes sense.
I'm talking about the limit belief. Limit belief is a frame. To go outside this frame, you know, is challenge for you coach the people for that. They need to see who they are, okay? And sometimes for moving.
Uh-oh, Eddie, you froze up.
You don't think so?
Oh, you cut off. The last thing I heard was moving.
Okay, I'll be back. What I say about limited belief is limited belief is like a box, like a frame. Mm-hmm. Everybody live inside this.
You might want to turn your video off, Eddie. You're freezing up. All right. I like what Eddie's saying about it's a box, because that does feel true. Like there's almost like facts that keep us in that limiting belief. It's almost like we box ourselves in with, oh, well, we can justify it, right? And I think that's why sometimes it's so hard to identify, is because we have little pieces of truth or fact that really back it up. And so we can really box ourselves in. So I thought that was kind of a cool metaphor he was using there. Kanika, what about you? Do you notice anything about perspective?
Not about perspective, but about limiting belief, yes. I think in my work life, I'm seeing one guy whose first answer to everything is no, cannot do it, or I cannot do it. So I think as a manager, my biggest metric is to make him believe that it can be done. I think I'm facing it the hard way. But yeah, it emphasizes the point how people tend to stay in that box that Eddie mentioned, without thinking that it is a possibility to move out.
Thanks for sharing that, Kanika. It's so true. Sometimes it can be hard to think about what is possible from inside that box. All right. I had this really cool thought on perspectives, like just after class ended. And I was like, man, if I shared that would have been so cool. Okay. How many of you guys have like food allergies or sensitivities or foods you stay away from in general? Most of us do, right? Might have things like, oh, I just don't eat this, or anyways, I have a lot of food sensitivities, and it's been about a year, and so can't have a lot of things. And I was like, I was making dinner. I was like, oh, I'm getting frustrated. Like, there's so much I can't have. And some of the things my husband cans, it makes cooking dinner just a nightmare, right? And so I was thinking, okay, instead of thinking that this is like kind of dreadful, I can't have anything I want perspective, what if I had the perspective of like a little baby who gets to try foods for the first time, right? And so I was thinking, okay, because I know my son's going to be getting into eating whole, solid foods. And I was thinking, what if I had that perspective? Like, this is the first time I get to try this, instead of, oh, this is what I get to have. And I thought that was pretty powerful. At least for me, it was. Just thinking about that I was like, what if I was like, Brussels sprouts, like, you know, or maybe I would be like, yuck, Brussels sprouts. But I thought that was interesting. Like, that's a perspective that, you know, that might be helpful for me, and just shifting even just about food. So that was the thought I had as we wrapped up class and I started to make dinner. So, all right. Well, I'm excited about values tonight. This is a really cool topic. But before we really get into the thick of it, I do want to touch on the difference between a process value and a perspective. We kind of touched on that a little bit with Mike, and we landed on they are connected. But and specifically in life coaching, we're really focusing on the process value. That's really the experience behind the topic value. So, for example, the value might be family. That's the topic value. But the process or the experience behind it is laughing together.
I'm sorry, my internet just go out.
No worries. Yeah, next time you want to talk, Eddie, maybe turn off your video and maybe that'll help, so it doesn't freeze up.
I really don't know what's happening.
No worries. We talked about your metaphor of the box and limiting.
Yeah.
We all liked it. We were like, that makes sense. So thanks for doing that.
What I think about the Be a Life Coach is, if we can move the people outside the limited belief, outside the box, you know, if you can do that, you are doing coaching for these people, you know. I believe our job, it is exactly like that. It is move the people for outside the box.
Yeah.
For they see how they are, for they see who they are and what they're doing. Make sense?
That does. Thank you.
Because I think life coach is understand the way to be and what they doing. You know, I can divide this in be, do, and have. You know, as a life coach.
Awesome.
And as a life coach, when you understand the limited belief for the people, and we can do steps, asking questions in steps, for they see themselves, what they doing, you know, and what could be different, what they can learn different. Then, if you get that, I'm doing a great coach for the people.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Eddie. I agree with you. That's, you know, our job isn't, you know, is to help bust limiting beliefs.
Exactly.
So appreciate you sharing. We're going to move on to values now, though. But really appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm glad your internet's working the whole time you shared. So that's awesome. All right. So we're talking about the difference between process values and perspectives. So we were talking they can all be connected, for sure. But specifically looking at process value, that's the experience behind a value. So like I was saying, family might be the topic, but what about family? What is about the experience is so important? And they might say laughing together. I mean, there's so many unlimited possibilities of topic values, but also those process values, because we're all different and unique. We might have some things in common, but looking at the process, that can get even more unique than the topic, because something that's important to me about family might not be important to Robin. Robin might value something else even more highly over like laughing together, so on. So looking at process values and perspectives, process values work from the outside in. So it's it's an experience that you're having on the outside that impacts you inside. A perspective comes from the inside out. It's like Kellen was saying, it's built over time. You know, it's part of our experience and our values and our beliefs all coming together and creating a lens. So it's from, you know, it's like we pull the lens out and and it's built over time, and it's something we have from the inside. What do you guys think about that? Let's talk about that amongst ourselves. What do you guys think about those distinctions?
A simple way that I kind of looked at it, my first thing that came to mind was, the topic was like the noun and the process was like a verb. If you want to look at it kind of that way. It's what came to mind that helped me remember one or the other. I don't know how true that is, but that's the way I looked at it.
I love that. That is awesome. So like the noun, like the topic
is the noun. Yeah.
Person, place, your thing, and then what about that? Like I like that, Robin. That's great. So the process value is the verb. What other thoughts? So either on process value, perspective, or how they're different. I know it's kind of a heavy thing. Like, whoa. What do you guys think? What about you, JC?
Well, I kind of liked in the reading how it like peeled it down. I mean, I like to go from big to more intricate. And so I liked the way it started with, your topic value, then the process, and then really kind of naming it and what like the action was. I struggle with the idea of like naming things sometimes in coaching because it sometimes I don't stop to actually identify things with a name. I just have them in my head. But I really like that this pulls it out and gives you a moment to really look at it and have a pause and appreciate it and look at like the areas that it might come into your life and how you could build more of it.
Thanks for saying that, JC. In this exercise, I'm not usually a big fan or advocate of taking a bunch of notes during coaching sessions as the coach. But for this one, definitely write down keywords your client's saying, because that's a really good way we can act as a mirror for them. Like I noticed you said this word. What is the value behind that? Or, just helping them pick up the words. And it's okay to start with several words to describe a process value and then, really help them like, well, how would you describe it in 2 words? So the goal is, 2 words. Not get tangled up too much in naming them, but usually you can just take what they've been saying and help them with that. So I noticed you said this when you're describing that. How does that fit in? And just really pick up on their words. So even as I do the demo, I really want you guys to pay attention to keywords someone's saying, because that can really point to values as well. All right. Thanks, JC. Anyone else have thoughts on this topic so far? Mike?
I'm curious, Hannah, because I think Eddie and Kellen both touched on whether these things are static or dynamic, whether they're changeable or whether they're relatively stable. And I'm just wondering, I think they're both changeable, to some extent. From a value standpoint, I think they probably change in their order of importance. Things rise and fall based on the pressures that you're feeling or the things that you're addressing in your life. Perspectives, like Kellen said, I think are maybe harder to change. But, just as you gain experience through life, as you learn new things through reading and talking with others, then your attitude or your stance on something can certainly shift. And so, and I think that's a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm rambling, but that's just what I was thinking about.
No, you're not rambling at all. I like hearing your thoughts. And I agree with you on the fact that they're really hard to change. But in coaching, it's almost like we're trying on perspectives. So, for example, you're trying to get to that really neutral place so that you can try on another perspective. That doesn't mean that might lead to permanent change, but likely it's going to require a lot of effort to shift your perspective on something, especially if it's been developed, for a while over time. But you can certainly try on a perspective and really, work at trying to see things differently. I do agree with you. I think it's really important to talk about values and check in on values. So after someone clarifies their values, and especially those process values behind them, to check as a coach, check in with them and how their current actions are lining up with their values. Because they might have something change and shift in their life, and then their values or the priorities in their values shift. Do you have another thought?
So how would you differentiate or draw distinctions between beliefs that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which are things that you see that not necessarily have empirical evidence behind them, and a value?
So assumptions and limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs have some truth, and limited, we call them limiting because may not be as helpful or really serving us. But I think belief, those can certainly sometimes really go really deep, and especially morals come into play as well with beliefs. A value is really, and what we're looking at is just the experience of, like Robin was saying, like the noun, so the experience. But I think your beliefs about something, if you believe that, really strong belief that family is really important, then you might that really can intersect with your values. Does anyone else have other thoughts on that? All right. Here's something I always think about when we talk about values, is that most of the time we know what's really important to us, but we have a hard time actually honoring our values sometimes. You guys agree with that? Why do you think that is? Like, if we know what's so important to us, why is it so hard sometimes to honor our values?
Outside opinions, just gonna throw that out there.
And that might be connected, JC, to a belief that outside opinions are more important than what's important to you. So that could be a connection.
Yep.
Robin, you look like you're on the edge of an aha moment.
Well, I'm just saying, there's a lot of options in life, so our value, there's just a lot of different options. Yeah. So it is sometimes hard to value our values.
I like that sentence. Sometimes it's hard to value our values. And there's a lot, and about the brain too, and how we're wired for survival, and wired for almost being really efficient. And sometimes it takes a lot of effort to honor our values. And planning, we're going to talk about having systems to honor our values, and how that helps us make decisions to honor our values. But a lot of times it takes a lot of effort. And sometimes if there's, Robin, like you're saying, a bunch of options, sometimes we might choose the easiest one to preserve our energy and our time and all of that too. What else? Does anyone else have other thoughts?
Hi, I have something.
Sure, Kelly, go ahead.
So when you go to the optometrist and they put different lenses in front of your eye for you to look at. So I was thinking about how you could say that one perspective in which the lens is thicker, that lens, is created by more that you have going on in your life, your friends, your family, your situation, your job. And then you can imagine putting a thinner lens in front of your eye, and maybe that's getting you closer to what you want, mm-hmm. and maybe getting you a little closer to your truth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there could definitely be different perspectives in looking at values.
Mm-hmm.
What a cool angle. Thank you for sharing that, Kellen. Just like JC was saying, like outside opinions. You know, looking at her values through the lens of outside opinions. What do they look like versus like her? You know, what's most important to her. Great thoughts. All right. Well, what I love about this exercise is we're really exploring and bringing to the surface values and why they're so important. So we're not just in this first part, we're not going to get into, you know, well, how are you living those out right now, or what, you know, can you make better decisions, or what system could you set up? We'll get to that a little later in class. But we're really just exploring and bringing values to the surface, so that you can really embrace them and see like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was so important to me. It can get really emotional, so just know that. I've seen that, you know, just when someone acknowledges something so important to them and why, it can get emotional. So just be aware of that. And I know you guys are all wonderful and will handle that well. But just be aware of that. I've seen that happen, and I know I've experienced that too. But that's when you know you're really getting to the heart of why it's important, when someone gets a little bit, is experiencing emotions. And it's okay to hold a little space for them and honor that, and talk about the experience of, you know, what is it like to be experiencing those emotions right now about this value that we're exploring. And so just have the adopted agenda. So I'm kind of giving the agenda. We have the agenda of exploring values today. And then we'll have a little mini break at the end of our time today where we'll really get into making decisions. The reason why I like them separate is because if we had them clumped together, you could have, explore, but then I need to make decisions and figure it out what I'm going to do about these values. Versus having a little space, you can really just have freedom to explore, and then, okay, based on what we talked about, is there a system we could set up so that you could better live out, you know, a certain value that's important to you, or values, you know, or is there something that, a decision you need to make to honor your values? So we'll get to that afterwards, but I like them separate because you don't want pressure for action in exploration. So especially with this one, I like the separation. So as we get started into this, who wants to be the lucky demo client tonight? I know I've picked on Robin laughs. I picked on JC recently. Let's see. I think I picked on Sarah. Is anyone interested, or should I pick someone?
I'll go.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Kellen.
Sure.
All right. So I know we have this adopted agenda of just exploring your values today. But is there anything that you're really looking to get out of, let's say, the next 15 minutes?
Let's see. As far as my values, I guess clarity.
Okay. How would you define clarity?
Prioritizing, making sure that the things that are really important to me are, you know, what's guiding my everyday decision making. Yeah, just making sure that the way that I spend my time is aligned with my values and what's important to me.
Okay. So this first part we're really going to explore. So hopefully you'll get clarity in that part as well. And then Kellen, when we come back from breakout rooms, I'll just pick up where we left off if you'd like. And we'll really talk more about decision making and making sure that, like what you said, that your life is in line with your values and your priorities.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's jump into this. So as you think about values, what is most important to you? If you had to say, what's most important?
Well, you know, honestly, I guess, I mean, I don't really want to say this, but I feel compelled to say it. I think money is important. And I really am reluctant to say that. That's not what I would really choose to put out there first. But so much of our life actually is dependent on money, and so Yeah, maybe we could talk about coming to terms with something that, you know, you're uncomfortable with, you know, and well, I think it's important to recognize the importance of it, even if you don't want your entire life to be geared toward getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it sounds like you're recognizing that money is really important, but you're almost reluctant to put it on your values list.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't seem like, you know, that should be a top priority. It's never really been, but yet probably a good percentage of my decisions has been geared toward making sure I have enough money, right?
Okay. All right. So it's really part of a lot of your decisions is money.
I think so. I mean, maybe not, you know, I don't stop and examine it, you know. I don't quite know how much is conscious and how much is sort of subconscious. But yeah, it's there. In addition to that, I would say, you know, flexibility of my schedule. I like to have freedom. So trying to find a balance between making money and having freedom has always been big for me. That's been really big. I don't like to have a lot of responsibilities, so I try to find, you know, the way that I can maximize the opportunity for making money with you know, having more free time. For me, that's the ultimate, if you can find that balance.
Okay. What is it? So it sounds like money and freedom. There's definitely a balance between the two.
Yeah.
Looking at money as the topic value, what about the experience of having money do you really value?
Yeah, it enables a person to take care of themselves. You know, if you can afford to feed yourself well, which is actually very, very expensive in this time that we're living in. You know, you want to buy, or I want to buy, organic food, non-GMO food. That's sort of my health insurance, you know. So that's a real priority, and being able to afford that premium, you know, price tag on those foods is it's a big consideration for me.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned care and just really eating, able to feed yourself well, as well as your daughter, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Is there any other processes underneath that topic of money that you really value?
Well, you know, being able to feel safe in the area that I live, living in a neighborhood in which I feel comfortable, having a reliable car. I mean, so much of our lives are determined by, you know, our paycheck, like, you know, what we're able to do. It's all sort of determined by how much money we've got in the bank, right? Our health, our happiness. I don't know. It's a question. You know, how happy can homeless people be? I wonder about that. As I see some homeless people, and they seem very, you know, sort of, I don't know, they have a Zen-like quality sometimes, or they just seem like they've achieved this mental kind of harmony where they're not searching for material goods anymore, you know. But I'm not there. I'm still caught in a rat race and still trying to, you know, live a very comfortable life with material goods.
Thanks for sharing that, Kellen. I want to share some words with you that you said, but I want to back up a little bit because I know you mentioned in the beginning of money, you said you were reluctant, like, to say that was one. And then I noticed you kept talking in the third person about the experience. Like people, want to be able to do this. Thank you. Is there a reason for that?
Probably because I tend to think in those terms. I don't know. I don't really, why do I do that? I guess I do that because it seems like the larger perspective, and I always try to think from the larger perspective, not from, my own personal interest. It's like, let's look at the bigger picture and then try to come at it from that way, and then maybe you're getting at a more universal truth, right?
Right. What I'm really interested in, Kellen, is what is really true for you and the individual level.
Right. Sure. I'll try to do that for you.
What's the struggle there?
I mean, it's just how I am, but I'll definitely try to change that for this conversation. Sure. Because, I mean, it's not going to get us where we want to be if I don't, right? So.
Kellen, what do you, it sounds like we tapped into another value just there. What is, let's say if looking at things from the big picture, what is the value there?
I think it would be, I guess I try not to think from a selfish perspective. I don't want to make decisions in a selfish way. I always want to try to be, living for the greater good, whatever form that is, but I don't know. What does it sound like to you?
Well, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the big picture, like the value of looking at things from the big picture, it's because you really want to be unselfish and not self-focused as much.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Right. So if this value of being selfless or being unselfish, however you want to do that, what is the experience behind that's really important to you?
Well, so that's sort of something that I've always wanted to contribute more than I have time for. I wish that I could volunteer, and this gets back to the responsibility of having to make money, and I don't have the time to volunteer and do the things that I wish that I could do. I wish that I could. I wish that I could volunteer. If I could help out at the homeless kitchen or something like that, or volunteer at the children's home. It's like not a foster care, but it's like an adoption center that we have here in town. I've wanted to do that, but I'm just constricted by time. I just don't have enough time. I think if I'm gonna afford, to continue living the way I live, I have to invest the hours and work. So maybe I'll get there at some point. Maybe I could, I don't know, maybe I could try to, and this is what I love about coaching. It's like breaking down these kind of, these viewpoints that you feel like are so unforgiving, and they really aren't. You could probably find a little bit of time. I could probably find a little bit of time to contribute a little bit more than I'm able to do. But yeah.
What is that like to realize that, Kellen, that you could contribute even a little?
Yeah, even a little. Even a little would be such a step in the right direction. And just recognizing that is just really valuable. finding the balance. I think that's what it's about, you know. How can maybe I don't quite need as much money as I think that I do. And so really fine-tuning the expectation, you know, what I could probably spend a little more time calculating and figuring it out rather than just, you know, trying to do 110% so that I don't have any, you know, unforeseen problems. I do, because I do feel that way. I do feel like, you know, if I give 110%, then if something unexpected comes up, then I'll have the resources to deal with that. But that's almost sort of like you're sort of living in a way that is, you're trying to manage your life with this feeling that there's, you know, some sort of catastrophe looming on the horizon. And I don't think it's a good idea to live that way. I mean, most things you're gonna have some idea of what's coming up, and you plan for that. And then if you have, you know, if you have some extra time here and there, then maybe spend it doing something that's not your usual. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, like take the opportunity to mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, you don't always have to be on damage control mode, right? You can, I think at some point, you know, you find yourself with a little more flexibility, and you don't realize that. You don't realize that you have a little bit of wiggle room at this point in your life, because you've sort of locked yourself in this mode of, you know, work, and gotta be careful and gotta be nose to the grindstone kind of thing. So.
All right. So Kellen, where is your nose right now?
Yeah, I mean, that is my perspective, is just not really being too lenient with myself. And so I think that's what I could probably take away from this coaching, is that I have come to a point in life when I could relax a little bit on myself and realize that I do have a little bit of space, that I could do some of the things that I've been thinking about for a while, that I've been wanting to do, you know.
What's at the top of that list? I know you already mentioned, you know, volunteering. What else is on that list of things that you'd like to do but you haven't been doing?
What else is on that list? I do make time for quite a few things that I like. I mean, I do make time for nature. I love to be outside. I love to spend time with, you know, my friends and family, and I try to do that on the weekends. During the week, I'm very busy during the week, and I don't really make time. You know, so I wouldn't mind carving out a little bit of space during the week to do a little bit more than work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So Kellen, I'm really curious, during the week, to what extent do you honor your values during the week?
Yeah, I am sort of stuck in this work mentality in the week. You know, it's like, it's really hard for me to break out of that. I try to maximize my time. I try to, you know, limit distractions. I sort of have this self-imposed rules about social media. I don't do that during the week. I just gotta, you know, stay very focused. Did I answer your question? What did you ask me again?
To what extent are you honoring your values during the week?
Well, I'm honoring the value of working, that's for sure.
That brings up the question, Kellen, what is the experience or what's the process behind working that you really value?
The process behind working that I value would be, the money, I suppose, right?
Okay. So those are really connected there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I mean, I think it's about, it's just about stepping back a little bit and recognizing that I can get done the things that I need to get done and still maybe do a little bit more,
Mm-hmm. I heard you mention the word more. What do you value about being able to do more, just in general?
I think that it would bring fulfillment. Again, being able to feeling like I'm contributing to something more than just, our personal well-being. Wanting, and that's why the health coaching is so lovely. It's just so wonderful because you're helping people and you're able to subsist and make a living. I really hope that it works out that way. But I try not to count my eggs before they are hatched. So I'll have to wait and see if this really does work out. But I do want to do more. I do feel like I would be more satisfied with my overall, life if I could do more to help people, if I could do more to contribute.
Mm-hmm. So far in our conversation, Kellen, it sounds like money is really connected to a lot of these other values because it brings freedom and flexibility. You like having resources and being prepared, being able to care for yourself and your daughter, feed yourself well. But it sounds like you're torn between this is what I need to do for me so that I can live the kind of life I want to live, and this is what I want to do for others, but first I need to do what I need to do for me so I can do what I want to do for others.
Right. Yeah. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then I'll let this conversation continue in breakout rooms. So, Kellen, if you had to pack up and go on a trip tomorrow, and you could only bring one thing, what would that be?
Well, I guess I would have to say it would be my laptop. I mean, we're talking about one object, not a person or.
Yeah, one thing.
Yeah, and see, again, there comes this kind of discord in me because I am sort of an anti-technology person. That's what I strive to be, and yet technology has, enabled me to have a lot of the flexibility that I have and money-making opportunities that I've had. It's been because of the internet, for God's sakes, and so. It's like the thing that I resist is the thing that cushions my life, and trying to love what I hate, I guess, because I don't really like what technology in some ways has done for society. I feel like people have become sort of like phone drones, or like they're not really there, they're not present, and so I don't want to be one of those people that's not present. I want to be present, and I don't want to be looking at a screen, but yet that's my answer to you is my laptop.
Thank you, Kellen. And it's so interesting how you said my laptop, even though I feel this way about technology, because then you can work, then you can make money, which was all like
right.
all that connected earlier.
Right.
So interesting. Other coaches, are you guys noticing how there's so much here? We could just go, I want to ask her about the value of not having technology. There's so much here we can do. I am going to stop us here, Kellen, but we can pick up where we left off, or you're going to actually go farther, because I didn't do everything with the steps. So far I just really explored with Kellen, and we've picked up some other, some just a lot of connections, I'd say. So far, Kellen, we really have the value of money, connecting with freedom, flexibility, resources, self-care, care for your daughter, feeding yourself well, security, being prepared, comfortable was another word that came up. And then we talked about the big picture and being unselfish and really being able to contribute and help others, which would help lead to your own personal fulfillment, even more so. We didn't get a chance to go into time, but I feel like there's some value around time, and I have a sense that it's around quality time that doesn't include technology.
Right. Yeah.
Nature and family and friends. You mentioned space. And let's see, technology, your work, and how that's connected with making money and so on. So that's where we're at. We've done a lot of exploring. So in your breakout rooms, whoever's coaching with you, you can have them dig in a little bit more, but then you can start moving on to step 3, which is like brainstorming names. So you want to get down to, if money is a value, what are the kind of the key process words about that?
Do you mind giving a couple of examples? That would help me.
Sure. So, for example, money, it might be, let's see, I think of like financial freedom, or I think of resourceful. That one's, I guess it's hard because it's not mine. But like, for example, like, being able to sit, like if someone's value is family and they love, playing board games with their family, it's about really about intentional time to play a game, or like creative play or something like that. So it's just kind of like dwindling it down. So there's so much with yours that I'd want you to choose the words, but I think something to do is flexibility, but like it's flexibility with like, I have this all taken care of, so I can now be flexible, or I give myself permission or something like that.
Right. That's good.
Maybe it's like secure flexibility or something like that. They're kind of but those are some things that came to mind for me.
Okay.
So you can start brainstorming names with whoever you're working with, and then you can really help describe further each value, and then the goal is to kind of get a list, which I know I have a bunch of words already started for you. I don't know if you were writing down things, but really get it down to like what's most important to you. Then we are going to be going back to breakout rooms, so you don't necessarily have to set an action step or accountability. But Kellen, I know you kind of had a little aha moment or something that you think you might want to do, so feel free to get into that too. In your breakout sessions. All right, so as modeled with Kellen, there's a lot there. There's so much like golden coaching soil to dig into. So we are going to take a half hour, so 15 minutes each. So you're not going to be able to get to every single value, but start with like what's most important to you. Or I love asking who do you most admire, because a lot of times there's a common value. Asking about strengths. Asking just what's important about it. What about that experience? So really get down to the process value, and just explore. So don't feel like, oh, I need to figure out my values right now or what I'm going to do about them, because we'll naturally go into that mode. I think in ourselves. I know Kellen, you started to think, oh, this is what I could do, and that's natural. But just try and explore. What's most important to you and why? What about it? Really get to that process value. Brainstorm names, and when we come back, you guys can have an option to share your process value. You might want to focus just on one, if there's one that's really prominent and connecting, Kellen, like yours was. But there's a lot of open ground, so I'll let you guys choose what flowers you want to pick in this exercise. But just have fun. We're going to take 15 minutes each, so half hour total. And it's really digging into exploring values. And we'll come back, debrief, and then we'll go to breakout rooms again before we wrap up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pause the